Okay, we're live. Yay. Now, okay, all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you especially to Dr. Jess Wade and to Richard Neville from Dr. Alice White. Dr. Alice White and Dr. Katie Mayhawks, who together, and Ali, thank you. Oh yeah, and TrowelBlazers, whatever. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for coming, for volunteering, for actually showing up to take action. This is a great turnout. Super excited that everyone's here. I hope we are going to get some excellent work done. Basics, tea and coffee and water and all that stuff in there. Go ahead and take the stuff that's out on the counter. I'll put some cups and stuff out. You can just have those anytime you feel like it. If you need a break, take a break. Women's toilets, 6th floor, men's 6th floor, gender neutral, 1st floor. Alex set us up so we can register. So if you're having any problems registering for the Wi-Fi, just let me know and we will fix that. But yeah, so generally the idea is we're going to hear a little bit from Jess about some amazing things that she's been doing in terms of basically getting recognition of women to a point where it reflects actual reality for women, which it seems a shocking concept apparently. But what we'd really like to do today is to add, and if possible, broaden the scope of the history of women in science. We have resources here that Katie has brilliantly provided, which will allow us to add the citations, to come up with perhaps new women's names that need to be added. So we'll sort of have a look at those later. But I really hope that today we'll be able to sort of walk out and go, actually, yes, we did some stuff today, but we can keep on doing stuff. This is not a one-time thing. We're gonna, I think what is the number of percentage of women editors on Wikipedia now? It's still something like 10% or?
Editors, 10 or 12.
10 or 12%. So okay, we can do better than that. We can do better than that. So so from TrowelBlazers' point of view, for those of you who I think you probably all know who we are, but we're really keen to make sure that when people look at the history of the earth science disciplines, people look at earth sciences, they see the women that were in it. And they are not confronted with a pale, stale male vision of science, and everyone grows up with the idea that they could be like this because they see someone like them reflected in these careers. So it's awesome to see this many people who are dedicated to that. So I will just allow Dr. Wade to introduce it. So she has been an amazing campaign. All right, yes. With no further ado.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. It is super, super important and exciting that we're all here. So my name is Jess. I work in the physics department at Imperial on new materials for electronic devices, which is a world away from archaeology and also from Wikipedia, I guess. But like probably everyone in this room and certainly like TrowelBlazers, I started campaigning more to improve representation of women and ethnic minorities and generally underrepresented groups in physics. Probably from about the middle of my PhD, I was kind of doing more and more stuff and kind of getting a little bit frustrated with how much effort probably all of you have put into these different initiatives and not really seen a lot change. And certainly the discussion felt like it was the same discussion that you're having in a million different places. And then I read this kind of incredible book called Inferior, which I've got a picture of on the screen. And this really changed the way I think about what we need to do to support women. It's a book by Angela Saini. Probably a lot of you have heard of it. Some of you may have read it. She is an engineer. She was an engineer at Oxford and she turned into a science writer and a journalist. And this book kind of sets out to look at why women have been so discriminated against in society, why the kind of historical scientific experiments and kind of societal thought have been set up to make women feel intellectually inferior to men. And actually you see it so much in academia and probably increasingly as you look throughout history, that women's stories were kind of written out because they weren't in the positions of power to be able to document what they and other women were doing. And Inferior, the title, actually comes from Charles Darwin, who wrote in The Descent of Man that women were intellectually inferior to men, but morally superior, but intellectually inferior. And in this book, alongside talking you through all of these dodgy neuroscience experiments that I wouldn't have the ability to be able to appreciate otherwise, Angela introduces you to all of these kind of incredible women who are standing up and saying this isn't right. You know, in the 1800s, when women couldn't vote or own property or go to university, women were writing to Charles Darwin and saying this is completely ridiculous. You can't say this kind of thing. And it's been happening for an incredibly long time. And I feel like now we have the power to do that. And we can do that from our laptops. We can do that from our labs, from our offices. And we can do that late at night. And we can kind of change the way that we think about women and celebrate women, ethnic minorities, LGBTQ plus people, anyone who's been overlooked for their contributions for science. We can do that now, and we can start off by doing that on Wikipedia. This book kind of, I don't know, it rocked my world. For about 2 years, I took it everywhere. I used to have this great pink cover, but I gave it out to everyone. And then my mum got really angry that I was ordering so many copies of this book and was like, you've got to stop ordering copies of this book. And then eventually, I think Angela Saini thought, why does this girl keep following me around to talks that I'm doing? And I started to think more about what we could do. I also met this fantastic woman. Oh, everyone got excited about it on Twitter. Met this fantastic woman who's over here, standing in the corner of the room, looking really embarrassed. So beautiful. And Alice is a historian of science. She works at the Wellcome Trust, just over the road. Wellcome Collection, sorry, Alice, just over the road down there. And Alice taught me about Wikipedia. Alice can tell you more about her fantastic job later on. But her job was kind of getting content from the Wellcome onto Wikipedia, and really taught me about, firstly, how powerful Wikipedia was at documenting our history and telling these stories, but also how biased and dangerous a situation Wikipedia had gotten into because of this lack of diversity in editors that Brenna told you about already. And then it got me thinking more and more about why Wikipedia is so important. And I know Richard's going to tell you a little bit more about this later on. But it's used so much in classrooms and in teaching, you know, in undergraduate teaching certainly, but also in high schools, by teachers, by all different kinds of people in education. Oh, there's me. Nice. But that's really important. So one aspect is the teaching part. The other aspect, which I realize is kind of, it's a circular problem, that media use it a lot. Journalists use Wikipedia a lot when they're about to write about a story, when they're putting together something for the radio, when they're doing anything, they go on Wikipedia to learn a few facts about it and also see who's a big deal in that particular discipline so they can invite them on. And I think, like, I say this a lot and I think about it a lot. But only yesterday night, I got an email from someone at the Live Scientific who says they always go on Wikipedia, like BBC Radio 4. They go on Wikipedia to find people, which is probably why for a very long time women were quite underrepresented on the Live Scientific. But also now they're trying more actively to find women, and invariably those women don't have Wikipedia pages. So the men they invite on always have a Wikipedia page, and the women don't have a Wikipedia page. And I think that's super interesting. Like, a really big part of getting onto Wikipedia is proving that someone's notable enough. And to prove someone's notable enough, you have to have certain representation in the media, and you have to have the BBC and people writing about you. It's really hard to do if the BBC are only writing about people who are on Wikipedia. So it's kind of like a circular problem that we have. And it's something that I kind of hope we can start to change with events like this and with you taking this kind of activism home. It's also really important in science. There was a great paper, and I can send this to everyone later on because I think it's so interesting as a kind of academic discipline. But an academic set a project to his class to assign different chemistry topics. So a bunch of the members of his school curriculum, well, no, undergraduate class, wrote about different topics in chemistry on Wikipedia, and then for the next couple of years they tracked how often those topics came up in the scientific literature. And he found that for this area of chemistry, you could assign 1 in 300 words from scientific publications to them starting on these Wikipedia articles. So it's not just kind of journalists and school kids using it, it's actually used within academic science too, and increasingly, I think, on interdisciplinary areas. You know, if I want to start, I work in physics, but if I want to start a new project in materials or, you know, biology, Wikipedia is probably the first place I'd go to try and understand whether something could be relevant without trying to understand the jargon in a scientific paper. So it's academia as well. It's kind of changing the way that we do research. And I keep going about how important Wikipedia is forever. One more aspect I want to say is really important. It's politically, I don't know if you saw this story, it was a couple of weeks ago, but the BBC did a big investigation into how Taiwan is written about on Wikipedia. And they found out that China had state-sponsored editors of Wikipedia to change the topics about Taiwan to make it a more Chinese-centric history on Wikipedia. So people think Wikipedia is really, really important. Everyone acknowledges how big a deal it is in our lives, and yet we have this really big bias in the people who are editing it. So I guess just like the upper areas of earth sciences or in physics, we have a strange world that we're creating where it's being written and controlled by 90% white men in North America, but serving the whole of society and increasingly important for the whole of society. And I think that's why we have to kind of all become bigger advocates to change it. A couple of weeks ago now, it feels like forever, but I visited this fantastic school in Brazil. And actually, everyone who gets invited to talk in cool places, this was the best idea I ever had. They're like, we come and do this talk in the university. And then they were like, oh, it's for 1,600 people. And I was like, oh, shit. And they said, what do you want to do when you're here? And I was like, I just want to go and hang out with kids in your schools. I just want to go and meet the kids in schools, which was really, really fantastic. And I went to this school, and they are, I mean, firstly, amazing. You can see they were super happy to be amazing me. No, they weren't at all. But they get $100,000 a year to spend on stuff at this school, and 80% of that they have to spend on food because the kids don't have enough food, and that's what they've always done. So none of their textbooks are up to date. None of the things that they use to teach their kids about what kind of jobs people go into in Brazil are at all up to date. All of those young people go on Wikipedia, on Portuguese Wikipedia, on English-speaking Wikipedia, and all of them use this as their primary way to get information. And I think that makes me even more committed to this kind of idea that we have a responsibility to make it as good as it can be, whether that's writing about earth sciences or women in earth sciences or people of color in earth sciences, whether that's translating a page from English into Portuguese or Portuguese into English. I think it's you can have such a powerful impact. So yeah, I've been doing this project now, inspired by Alice and Angela, for about nearly 2 years. I started writing every single day about women and ethnic minority scientists on Wikipedia at the beginning of 2018, and I've done 800. This week it's my 800th Wikipedia page. I'll tell you about 3 fantastic ones and then leave you with some ideas about things that I think we can do. So this is a woman called Gladys West, and she's an African-American mathematician who was born in the 1930s. And when I wrote this page, when I started this page, it was a couple of years ago, in February last year, so Black History Month last year in America. And there was a small video about her on CNN that was about 90 seconds. And so I started putting together this page, and she's been involved with the church. So there were various things in her community websites, you could find a little bit of information about her. But there was nothing like a photograph. And she studied maths at a time when not many women studied maths in America, and then went to work for the government and did kind of the early tech for GPS. So she was kind of doing the early mathematical models to put satellites in the sky to give us transport directions, to let me and Alice work out how to get to this building actually on Google Maps. And then, after this page being up for a couple of months, she was nominated for the BBC Top 100 Women. So top 100 women in the world, Gladys West, approaching the age of 90. She also finished her PhD by distance learning, so she's now got a PhD. And then all of these fantastic photographs came kind of license-free. We could use them because the US government inducted her to the Air Force Hall of Fame. So it's kind of this incredible journey of someone that you learn about while you're writing about them, really not much told anywhere. And then when this kind of thing happens, the beautiful thing about Wikipedia is you can track how many times the pages are being viewed. So if they get put in the top 100 women list of the BBC, it goes to like tens of thousands of page views a day. And then the US Air Force will do this, and then we have all of these fantastic images. So that's one really, really great story, because she just keeps getting more awesome. Someone born in the 1930s, and you learn their story. And now my determination for 2020, I think, will be to try and meet Gladys West in some capacity. I want to make it happen. This was an amazing story too. So June Lindsay was a crystallographer in the UK in the kind of early 1940s, so just before the Second World War. And she was a woman at Cambridge at a time that women weren't allowed to graduate from Cambridge. So she was studying natural sciences there, wasn't allowed to get a degree. The Second World War happened. They put all of the women scientists in Cambridge, maybe some of archaeologists, you'll learn about them too. They put all of those women scientists into high schools to teach. So they went into schools in the UK because they were allowed to do that. She then went back into Cambridge afterwards and got her degree and started working on the crystal structure of DNA. So she was there with Rosalind Franklin and James Watson and Crick and all of them. And she predicted the hydrogen bonds. So I know a tiny bit of chemistry, not any biology, but different parts of DNA. She predicted the structure, and she actually worked really hard on the crystallography of the different units, the different phosphate units. And her work was probably taken by Franklin, and then was probably taken by Crick and Watson. But really no one was talking about her, no one knew about her, because she got so pissed off with British academia. She left. She just moved to Canada and had a completely different life there. She worked briefly at the Royal Institution for Bragg, who's another really big crystallographer. And then a professor of biochemistry in Canada, kind of, 45-year-old man, was at the birthday party of his mum's friend, where there were a bunch of 90-year-old women hanging out. And June Lindsay was one of them, and was like, let me tell you my story. And then it went all over kind of Canadian news. And then I put together this Wikipedia page, and the guy who started it all off, this biochemist, found all of these incredible documents, like this photograph of the Cavendish lab, the physics lab in Cambridge, where down here you have June Lindsay, like with this wall of men. I think there's one other woman in it somewhere. You'd hope that that's Rosalind Franklin, but she's down here, like just incredible. And then a letter written from Bragg, so Nobel Prize winning laureate, crystal structures, saying, please come back, we really need you, we really need your scientific capacity, it would be so great if you could do this now. It's just absolutely amazing. One more that I think was incredible, who's more contemporary, but Katie Bauman was one of the scientists who helped contribute to the first direct image of a black hole. So she's a computer scientist who was at MIT, is now at Caltech, super young. And this photograph was on almost every newspaper over the summer, probably everyone remembers seeing it. And MIT tweeted something like, you know, Katie Bauman did this, and there were some great images on social media. And so I wrote this Wikipedia page when I got home from work, because that's one rule you have to have for yourself. Because if you start editing in the day, you'll never stop. So make it a rule that you'll do it when you get home from work. And I wrote this page, and then I sat down and had dinner. And by the time I finished dinner, it had been translated into about 15 different languages, which never happens, right? Everyone around the world is talking about it. And the next day, I think now it's on about 26 different languages. It was viewed 300,000 times within 48 hours of this page being made. It's kind of incredible how much impact you can have in a short amount of time. And I hope that we can get this for all topics. You know, if you write about earth sciences, if you write about a particular women today, we can generate that kind of excitement and link it in different ways. So I'm going to stop talking now because I've definitely got over 10 minutes, but I wanted to leave you with ideas of things that we can do in a really easy to read way. So you can write or improve a page about a woman or ethnic minority scientist. That's a really, really good thing to do. Write about a science topic. Maybe if there's topics in archaeology or in earth sciences or related disciplines that have pretty good Wikipedia pages, but not great ones, or they don't mention women in any capacity, you can go on there and try and get that mention in, because that will increase the traffic that gets to your page later on. So find creative and clever ways to link what you're writing to different parts of Wikipedia. Translation into another language is really, really great. And if you can do it, it's really, really fantastic. There's an option to auto-translate, and I think it uses Google Translate, similar Google Translate tools. But for all of the pronouns, it puts he. So it's really funny. It will be like, Louise is a neuroscientist. He got his PhD there. It's quite comical to do. It's also probably not very good translation. So if you can, if you do speak two languages, then a really great thing to do is to translate. If you have any images, if you've got images, particularly maybe people who've been featured in TrowelBlazers that you've taken the image and have the rights to, or people at UCL, or people that you work with, if you can upload photographs to Wiki Commons. I think Alice might talk about this in a bit, if she's talking, but people hang around on Wikipedia pages more if they've got a photograph on, and something really frustrating is how few photographs you have the permission to upload to Wikipedia. Improving categories, we'll talk a bit about this later on, but also encouraging people to write about women and people of colour. You know, if you have the opportunity to speak to a journalist, or if you are writing a science paper, if you write a blog for your university website, anything that can let us cite that on Wikipedia is really valuable and important. And maybe that's nominating someone for a prize too. But that's, you know, that's a big ask. But if you can just encourage people to write and talk more about them, then that's really, really great. Okay, I'm actually going to stop talking now. But if you want to email me, or if you want to find me on Twitter or email me, you can. And yeah, so thank you so much and have a really fantastic afternoon, morning. Great.
Right, well, thank you. So Jess is, we all want to grow up to be. We will. It may happen. So Alice, did you want to say a few words about things, or?
I'm going to do the training in a bit.
Okay.
And then I'll, yeah.
Good. Okay. So there's tea and coffee in there and water in there if you want. So we will next hear from Richard Neville, who is from Wikimedia UK, and has, yes, I hope so, otherwise, but has very generously offered to come, give his time, and basically, I think, kick us off in the world of Wikimedia. But he's going to explain a little bit, I think, about kind of how this whole thing works. And yeah, so we get insights from the inside, insider knowledge. So thank you so much, Richard.
Absolutely, thanks very much. So I'll be talking a bit about basically why it's important to work with Wikipedia. And then Az will be teaching us some stuff about training, and we'll be walking around the room helping you get started and actually making a difference to Wikipedia. So Wikipedia is something we're all very familiar with. It's pretty much a universal resource. It gets 20 billion page views a month and is the 5th most visited website in the world. So it's easy to take for granted just how important and all-encompassing it is. The English language version is the one which is used most often. It's also the largest and most detailed, with 16 million entries. And across more than 300 languages, there are 51 million entries in total. But it's more than just Wikipedia. So it's really a network of websites which act as a hub of information. So there's Wikimedia Commons, which is a kind of media library attached to Wikipedia, full of free-to-use images, videos, audio clips, and even the occasional 3D model. And then you've got a host of other websites like Wikisource, which includes out-of-copyright books and articles, and Wikidata, which is an open source database of pretty much everything. And all this feeds through to Google. So the stories told on Wikipedia and its sister websites don't stop there. They end up just about everywhere. An important thing about Wikipedia and all its content is that it's free to reuse. So you can remix it, adapt it, create commercial products with it. And as a result, because it's a really rich resource, it gets picked up and used again and again and again. So you can have people using it for research. On the left here, we have Jack Andraker, who at the age of 14 used information on Wikipedia and other open access sources to come up with a new way for testing for pancreatic cancer. On the right here, we have an artistic response to Wikipedia. So to mark the 800th anniversary of the signing of Magna Carta, Cornelia Parker created a tapestry of the Wikipedia page about Magna Carta. So in part, this was because it's still a living document, and it was a very interesting way of commemorating that event. So you're never quite sure where the content on Wikipedia will end up, just how people will interact with it. It's really designed for a general audience, people to pick up information very quickly, maybe with a summary, but also have that much deeper information, people who want to really learn about the subject. But it can take off in all kinds of unexpected directions. Now, there are some significant biases within Wikipedia. So I think it helps to understand what goes into it, really. So, in the last month, 400,000 people made an edit to the English Wikipedia. So that's a pretty large community of people taking part. Now, once you start to say, okay, what about people who are more active, contribute more time and information to the project, it starts to narrow down. The funnel gets a bit narrow. So, raising the bar to just 5 edits, you've got 70,000 people taking part. And so that is still a large community of writers. But at the same time, they are maintaining millions of entries across a whole range of topics. So it's quite a large ask, really. And importantly, you don't have to be an expert to be able to contribute. And that really is an important building block for Wikipedia. It's leveraging the crowd and their time and their resources to create this communal website. And so you don't have to have a degree in what you're writing about or being published in that area, as long as you're using reliable sources to cite the Wikipedia article you're writing, that is the core principle. As long as you're doing that, your background doesn't really matter. Well, to some extent anyway, because your background will influence what kind of stuff you write about. So when it comes to Wikipedia, I tend to write about stuff to do with the Middle Ages, because that's what I'm interested in. And only 12%-ish, depends which survey you look at, of the people who write Wikipedia are women. And that kind of filters through to the way subjects are written, types of coverage, and biographies. So the English Wikipedia has about 1.5 million biographies overall. Only 18% of those are about women. A few years ago, it was even worse, down at 16%. But once that problem became clear, the community decided that there needed to be more work to address the balance. So there's been a project going on for many years, involving many different groups of people involved with Wikipedia. So organisations such as Wikimedia UK, volunteer groups such as Women in Red, who are very proactive in creating new articles. And it's been a collaborative effort to improve representation. But when you've got more than 1 million biographies, raising even 1% takes a hell of a lot of work. So 18% represents a fairly long, well, a very long road ahead, but also a long way travelled as well. It's been a good amount of effort, still an awful lot more to do. Now, this imbalance is easy to measure in some ways, but there are other aspects where it's not so clear, especially on a quantitative scale. So you'll find some biographies of women where they are first mentioned in terms of their relationship with their husband, who might be a significant figure. So we found this at a recent event about women in the UK film industry in the 20th century. And instead of mentioning this person's career, which was actually rather significant, the Wikipedia article mentioned who she was married to, rather than what it actually was that she did professionally. So fortunately, we're able to change that, but it's indicative of this wider problem. And then there are going to be topics which just aren't covered at all. And in part, that's because of Wikipedia's setup. So part of Wikipedia's control system is that all the information needs to be referenced to a reliable source. So books, journals, newspaper articles, university websites, organizational blogs, that kind of information makes a good source for Wikipedia. But as a result, Wikipedia ends up replicating systematic biases within the world around us. So if women are less prominent in the source literature, you can pretty much guarantee they'll be less prominent within Wikipedia. And that's another contributing factor to the way women are written about. And as a result, you can pretty much guarantee that women are cited less often within Wikipedia. So I'm not aware of a systematic study that's looked into this, but I've looked at articles on topics I'm aware of. So stuff like the page on the Middle Ages on Wikipedia. It's a pretty hefty topic, spanning hundreds of years, many countries, and it has a huge amount of literature written about it. The Wikipedia article is very detailed and it's well written and rather lengthy. I think it pushes past 10,000 words quite comfortably. And it uses about 100 different books, journal articles, websites as sources. Of those, about 15% have at least one female author. That really shouldn't be the case in medieval studies. Historically, there has been a bias in terms of who was involved in researching the subject, but now there is much greater balance, and it's certainly possible to write history based on women's work. Quite frankly, 15% amongst those sources just isn't good enough. I found something similar amongst the page on the Black Death as well. So a subject with great popular interest, one of the kind of touchstones of popular history, but you find a similar imbalance in terms of who's writing the source material that's used in the Wikipedia article. So writing women back into Wikipedia is partly about improving their biographies, creating new biographies, looking at where they're mentioned on Wikipedia, looking at where they should be mentioned, but maybe aren't, and looking at where their work could be cited. So, for example, look at people we know they've influenced, see if they're mentioned there. Look at their partner's website entry. How are they mentioned there? How are they framed within that context? Look at sites they've investigated. Are they mentioned? Is their work represented there? So there are many different ways to make sure that women and their work is represented within Wikipedia. And it's absolutely vital to do that. And as you go around Wikipedia, the crowdsourcing nature of it really comes to the fore. So you'll find articles of varying quality. You'll find some which are excellent, the best summary of a topic around, and you'll find some which are short, some things a bit wrong about them, cobbled together and just not quite right. But the great thing about it is that because it's an open website, everyone has the opportunity to take part and improve it and make it better. So it is vitally important that when adding information to include references. And in fact, Wikipedia does include health warnings at the top of its pages saying, this page needs better references, or this page has no references at all. Or if there's something even worse with the page, it will warn you that it might have point of view issues. So it's perhaps the only website which points out if there are problems with its content. So you can at least go into the page with a critical eye towards what it's saying. And it's worth saying that every single change to a Wikipedia article is publicly logged and publicly available. So you can see what's gone into a page and how it's changed over time. Now, what's on Wikipedia has a very real impact on the world around us. As a Wikipedia editor, you're very often thinking about just who are the people reading this page. That is the core audience. And with 20 billion page views every month, that's certainly a very obvious concern. You want to make sure that what they're getting is worthwhile and top quality. But it's also important because it ends up everywhere else as well. So it appears in Google results. Very often it's one of the top few results. It's been used by Facebook and YouTube to combat misinformation and fake news by providing context for links that are being shared and fringe theories. And that's because Wikipedia is very often seen as this neutral resource. It's this impartial view on the world. But when it's only being produced by 12% of its women of its contributors are women, it is not as biased as it strives to be. It is not neutral, rather. But because it has that perception for the general public, that gives it a considerable amount of weight. It's come a long way from people if they're debating things online will very often refer to Wikipedia because it is this independent arbiter of the truth. And what's in there often feeds through to, say, your electronic personal assistant. So stuff like Amazon Alexa, they will pull information from Wikipedia. So if something isn't represented on Wikipedia or is imperfectly represented, that is then perpetuated throughout the network of information online. And then you get organizations like the Tate, who are sourcing artist biographies from Wikipedia. So they thought, because this is a free-to-use resource, we might as well make the most of it, since we don't have the resources right now to write as many biographies of artists as we like. And because Wikipedia has crowdsourcing and the quality control process with lots of people essentially reading a page and correcting it, they were reasonably confident in what they were doing there. And Wikipedia, and to some extent Wikidata, that database sister site I mentioned earlier, underpin a lot of Google searches. So not just the links at the top directly to Wikipedia pages, but it helps structure some of the stuff you see at the side. So stuff like related topics. If you look for an actor, you'll be told about some of the films they starred in. And in part, that is based on information on Wikipedia and in Wikidata. And the same is same is applicable for authors of books and papers. So it's really important to have this stuff on Wikipedia because it ends up everywhere. I just mentioned earlier the study about seeing how Wikipedia shapes scientific language. And so this is a brief summary about that in Nature. And basically, even if researchers aren't using Wikipedia as a reference in their work, they're still using it to ground their knowledge. 20 billion page views tells us that everyone is using it. And so even people aren't aware of assimilating the language from it and being influenced by the content of Wikipedia, it permeates through. And so it's really vitally important that women are represented both as figures and in terms of making sure their research is available through Wikipedia. So hopefully.
Sorry, I've just realised that we do need the screen for a class downstairs, apparently. So just because we've gone.
Not my fault.
No, this is my fault. This is
not your fault either.
But I just, if there's anything on the screen that you wanted to show, because we'll have to detach it.
Well, this is the end of my slideshow.
Okay, all right. So we will. But yes, please finish.
Alex,
Yeah.
where does this leave us then?
Yeah, no, we'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how to edit. Now, hopefully you've all been won over as to the why this matters. What I'm going to do is do this as a live tutorial. So I'm going to talk you through the steps to get you editing. Sometimes I do this with a screen. That's not always possible, which isn't a problem because what we will hopefully be doing is working through the steps. I'm going to take this nice and gradually. So at any stage, if you're like, I'm not sure if I can see this thing, just raise your hand. There's a bunch of experienced editors in the room, so they can come and point you to find the thing that you're looking for, to make sure you get where you need to be, to manoeuvre out of the way.
Yeah, Alice, do you want to, if you're happy to be on the live stream, please do come up and we can give you an actual mobile screen.
Great.
Okay.
Oh, look at that.
So that you are able to access one of those things. There we go.
Look at this. This is,
Like, I'm going to play the keyboard for you or something.
you definitely don't want that. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Alice. My background is in history of science, as Jess said, and I work at Wellcome. So I do stuff with trust-funded researchers, with the general public, with anyone who fancies doing a bit of wiki stuff, as well as doing things for the Wellcome Collection website. And I'm going to take you through this training. I've done this training with lots and lots of different people before, many of whom have never touched Wikipedia except to look things up, to get started on a topic, to do a bit of research, to settle up on that, any of those reasons. So can I see a show of hands? Anyone who's used Wikipedia before for something? Looking something up. Okay, this is reassuring. So we should all be familiar with what Wikipedia looks like. And we're just going to go behind the scenes of that. So can I see a show of hands? Anyone who has edited Wikipedia before? Okay, so we've got a few. This is brilliant. You folks, if you've edited Wikipedia before, if you're confident and you just want to get going, then feel free to dive right into doing some editing. Have a look. If you've got a page in mind, feel free to start editing that page. If you want some suggestions of pages, we've got some on the event dashboard for today that I'm going to get everyone to join, if you don't mind, because it's a really amazing way, like Jess said, of tracking the impact of an event and totting up how many people are looking at the pages that you're going to work on making better or creating today. So it's a really exciting thing to see what effect you're having in the wider world, not just in the room today. Like I said, there's going to be some suggested pages, because one of the hardest things about editing Wikipedia sometimes is thinking, where do I even begin? What do I start telling people about? I don't know. So, Richard, did you want to write a poster, since we haven't got a screen? Can we write in nice, enormous letters on a bit of paper and stick it to a wall somewhere, the event dashboard short link, so that people can find it? And I'm going to carry on with the tutorial. So, like I said, for those of you who know what you're doing, when Richard sticks it on the wall, take a look at it. And you can get started that way. For those of you who have not edited Wikipedia before, can I see a show of hands, anyone who has not created a Wikipedia account and needs to do that today? Okay, loads of us, that's totally fine, because what I've done is enabled this thing on the dashboard so you can press a button saying, I'd quite like a Wikipedia account, please. And then there's some steps to follow through and we can get that set up for you. So, what we will do is, I am just going to double check. Right. So what's going to happen is, Richard's going to come back in with that short link to the dashboard. When you go to the dashboard, you will see two buttons right at the top. One says, log in with Wikipedia. The next button says, request an account. So for anyone who doesn't already have an account, you just click on the request an account button, and then it asks you, what username would you like? This is one of the trickiest things you will encounter today. What username would you like? You can choose any name you like. It could be related to your real name. You might want to edit under a pseudonym. The name that I edit under is Zero Monk, which sounds more like mysterious. Where did I choose that? Oh, actually, it was something that the Xbox Auto suggested for me when I was trying to set up a Netflix account. So not so deep and mysterious. But that's just what I started editing under. I have kind of outed myself that that's my account. I tell the people at events that that's the account that I edit with, but not everyone chooses to do that. If you want to edit anonymously, that's totally fine. So whatever you're happy with today. And it asks you for your email address so that it can send you a temporary password so that you can, get logged in. So don't worry, you're not going to be getting loads and loads of emails from Wikipedia. I know sometimes you put your email address into things and think, oh goodness, I'm just going to get 6 emails a day for the rest of my life from these people. That shouldn't happen. It's just so that you can get connected. So I've seen that lots of you haven't edited Wikipedia before, maybe don't have an account just yet. Can I see a show of hands from any of you whether you have ever used Microsoft Word or written an email? So if you've done any of those things, awesome. Okay, if you've done either of those things, you can edit Wikipedia because it's now really, really straightforward. And it has this lovely dashboard that has all the important buttons at the top, just like Microsoft Word does, just like your email does. So when you are editing Wikipedia, you can just click on a button up the top to change the formatting, or to add a link, or to add a citation. And for any of you who've ever had to write anything without using a Swizzy reference management software, I did a history PhD, right? So that 100,000 words of writing all of those citations. When I saw the reference manager built into Wikipedia, I was just like, oh, why did this not exist when I was doing my thesis? This would have saved years of my life. So it's quite nice in that Wikipedia demands that you cite everything wherever you can, but it also makes it pretty easy to do that. So I'll talk you through exactly how that works. And how you can add your citations, and we will dive straight into some editing. So
we've got paper, just no pen.
Super. That's handy. I think I usually have an emergency pen in my bag.
Would it be like a really thick, chunky board marker type pen?
Lots of junk in there. You would think I would have something like that.
What is it? Maybe we can just say. We can. I can go get a shot. But
That would be
lovely.
just
I'm
gonna read it out, but if you don't end up on something that looks like a dashboard, panic not.
No one knows what the dashboard looks like, so no one will know when they ended up there.
Okay, so it's bit.ly, bit.ly link, / has everyone got a browser open? Yeah. / all little letters, TB Wiki 2019. It's not that hard. But, you know, it's good to have it written up because sometimes you end up navigating away from the page and then you forget what it was and it's annoying to get back to. So it's bit.ly.
Google already suggested it.
Brilliant. Amazing. / creepy. One of them. So / TB Wiki 2019. So has everyone got that dashboard come up? Okay. Lovely. Is there anyone who needs to borrow a laptop or is people sharing, working on phones, things like that?
No, it's easier on a laptop.
It's much easier on a laptop. Richard, have you got spares?
Spare what?
Well, I'll let her know when she comes back.
If not, I'll give you mine once I've walked you through. Is that all right? Okay.
Thank you.
So if you want to buddy up as well, that's a really nice way of working. So you can have one person reading through and finding citations and another person adding stuff to the page and kind of work as a team. So that's a nice way of doing things, whichever you're more comfortable with. We are. There's a couple of folks over there who, if you've got a spare laptop. Oh, okay. So that'd be really awesome.
Yeah. I can. How many?
How many of you would like a laptop if possible? Just one, two. All right. I was doing. Yeah.
Cool. All right. And then eventually we can move this to.
Lovely.
Oh, right. Okay. So this is the description. So it's saying, so I've looked into it. Google already. This is where it's showing. So I can see it.
Yes,
If you
bit,
question
Here we go, I wrote it on the side.
Hey, TV, like TrowelBlazers, Wiki, WIKI, 2019.
Do you mind if we take photos of you?
Please do. I mean, I never sign it. I'm always flailing. I'm speaking
I think I'm a really good Alex photographer. All of my photos of you are like beautiful.
Yeah, well,
I just favourite them all.
Sorry.
Blue tack is going to be too big enough.
okay. So I've seen that loads of you have already requested accounts. That's very exciting. Is everyone sort of getting there with this?
So then like your username, I think I'll leave it as that.
Okay.
Well, Wiki editor. I think that's just a string. I think you need to. So you could do something. You could do something that reflects the intention. You could do something
There you go.
just totally
Okay.
random.
Is anyone else having
Like
issues or need a hand?
so they'll just call it project.
No, looking good. Okay. Sorry, I'm rummaging the bottle of water so I'm not croaking at you. Right, so now that you've logged into the dashboard, if you have managed to, oh, another request, fantastic. Let's just get that.
Do you want me to keep accepting them?
If you wouldn't mind, that would be super.
No, I don't mind. I'll just have to go into it with you.
You can log in because I'm gonna. Right, okay. So, like I said, once you have connected to the dashboard, that's great. This is kind of the hub that we can return to check on how things are going. There are a list of articles. So up the top, you'll see there's a bar and it says home. editors. If you've logged in, you'll be listed under the editors. There's another tab that says articles. There are some suggested articles there. You don't have to edit one of those. It's just if you're feeling a bit like you need some inspiration and pointing in the direction of something, those are some pages that already exist, but they need a little bit of TLC. There's one of them that I found, to my horror, is literally one sentence.
But that means they're super notable to be able to stay on Wikipedia with one sentence.
Yes,
Yep.
so we need to improve some of those. So once you've done that, I'd recommend you keep a tab with that dashboard open because it's just a useful place to return to. In a new tab, open up Wikipedia. You can choose to edit in any language, but I can only help you in English and maybe French if I'm feeling very ambitious, but probably mainly English. So if you wouldn't mind editing on English Wikipedia just to enable me to get you started, that would be super.
We should have more people registered because we've only got 12
Yes.
on the
We have to
dashboard.
wait for
But some
pressure.
people are sharing.
It might email it to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine says enrollment failed.
Oh, we might need to do yours a different way.
That sounds interesting.
The wonderful thing about the internet is it can break in new ways every single time you try and.
We're very
Was that
lucky
me?
that
I don't know.
You're already joined. It says you can't join twice.
Oh,
That's all sorted.
oh, so I'm in. That's me in. And you did I know?
Yep, that's you logged in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe it's not gonna work on the. We can do it. Yeah, we can do it. MSc students from the corridor, so we had more, but we had to go to the so yeah.
So I'll just be over and update you.
Mine's going really well. So I'm thinking that I can just take this back and then I can get everybody else and just explain it back.
Thank you very much.
One question that was, can
So I'm in it. Yeah, that's it. That's a bit. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think you said it's fine. Yeah. So just wait for password.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like that. We've got like 25
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it's been up to the library and take our own now. So we have to do that. I'll see.
So, you want those two?
Okay, so thanks everyone for getting sort of through the fatty bit of signing in and getting yourself going onto Wikipedia. So, like I said, if you open another tab, so you've got Wikipedia open, but you've also got the dashboard just in case you want to go back to it. On Wikipedia, you should be able to sign in with your username and password. So, is everyone signed in to Wikipedia?
Right.
Getting there? Yeah. What you will notice once you've signed into Wiki is up the top, you'll see your name, your username, next to a little figure of a person. It will be in red if you've never created a user page, if you've never done any things on Wiki before. So the easiest way to learn to edit is actually to create your user page, because then you get to use the dashboard, the toolbars, you get to press all the buttons, but you're not working on a real life page, you're just working on a profile for yourself. And you can say as much or as little about yourself as you want to. So I want everyone to find your name up the top in red and click on it. And you will get a message that says, this page doesn't yet exist. There is not a page with this name. What would you like to do? And the first bullet point, which they've helpfully put in bold, is start this page. So we're going to start this page. We're going to create a page introducing yourself to other Wikipedians. This is a nice thing to do because not only does it mean you're getting a bit of practice, but it also tells other Wikipedians what your interests are, if you want to share that information. And really, really, really strong
strongly recommend that if you don't write anything else about yourself, you write when you started editing Wikipedia. Because Wikipedians don't like to patronize people, which means sometimes they use lots of acronyms. And you might be, if you're new to editing, thinking, what on earth does this jungle of letters mean? Whereas if they see from your user page that you've said, I started editing Wikipedia in November 2019, they'll see, oh, relatively new to this, I won't put everything in acronyms, I will actually spell things out to be able to help someone who's new to get to grips with things. So, click on that Start the Page button, and you should have
There we go.
a new page pop up, empty and ready for editing. Is that what everyone sees? Lovely. Okay, perfect. Let me see. Lovely. Yeah. Lovely. No problem.
Log in with the.
Yeah. So you want Wikipedia, that's it. Lovely. Good. Let me see how you're doing. All right over here. Oh, have you got Wikipedia open in your chat? Okay, so open up Wikipedia and you tab. Perfect. And then you'll see nothing that if you show you the vote. Right. Yeah. So that's it. Okay, and then start the user page. Lovely, perfect, great. Okay, so everyone has probably got a box with a red warning box above. Is that what it's looking like for most people?
Yep.
I see. Yeah, perfect. Can I just yeah, no worries at all. You're already sorted. Okay. So
I'm just going to squeeze
what
myself open some windows and everything.
right now, if you've got that red box, is called the source editor. So that is the original way of editing Wikipedia. You'll notice when you start typing in that blank space, it comes out in kind of typewritery font. Yes. So the wiki editor, the source editor, is
I'm probably going to have a few pop-ups.
okay.
It's a new account.
So the wiki source editor is the original way of editing Wikipedia. It's the way that I learned to edit in 2015, and it is very similar to HTML markup. So if anyone's ever done any HTML editing, you'll feel really comfortable with this. Actually, it's a breeze by comparison because the toolbar helps you with shortcuts and things. But when I started editing using the source editor, you spend a lot of time looking for punctuation on your keyboard that you might not have used before. As a historian, rather than a computer programmer, I was like, where the hell are the square brackets? Where are the squiggly brackets? What on earth is a pipe? How do I find these things? What do I use them for? What do they do? You can absolutely learn that if you want to. The easiest way to learn what all the different bits and bobs do is probably to sort of look behind the scenes on another page. But we're a bit lazy. Wikipedia editors are very, very generous. And they've created a thing called the visual editor, which is so much nicer to look at. You don't have to edit this way, but I strongly recommend that you take a look at the top of the page and you'll see there's what I like to refer to as the magic pen, magic pencil. Do you see that kind of on the sort of top right of your toolbar? Click on the magic pen and you'll be given the option to switch to the visual editor. Strongly recommend you switch to the visual editor, the one with the eyeballs. It's so much nicer. It makes everything look pretty, and it's called a WYSIWYG editor, which means what you see is what you get. So when you change something here, you can see right away if it's working or not. You can see if you insert a picture, that it looks right, it's in the right place. You can see if you insert a link, that it goes blue to take you to another Wikipedia article. You can see that all of the things are working straight away, and it's kind of reassuring and helpful. And also, it's like doing stuff in Microsoft Word and doing stuff in your email, which is why I said if you can do either of those things, you'll be totally fine with this, because it's basically the same. So up the top, you've got your toolbar, you've got undo and redo buttons.
also always useful things when you're editing anything at all. You've got paragraph drop-down menu. Your paragraph drop-down menu, if you want to highlight something and turn it into a heading, so some of the pages, for example, on our list of suggested pages to edit are just a big old block of text. And they might need dividing up with some subheadings put in to make them more readable. You can just click on the paragraph button and find headings. You can also add more subheadings, you can add block quotes, those kinds of things.
It's just like Word.
It's just like
the
Word.
document on Word.
The next button along is an italicized capital A with a line underneath. That is all the formatting, so you can make them bold, you can put things in italics.
You can't make stuff colourful.
You can't make stuff colourful, but good reason for that. You know, we want it to be as readable as possible.
Everything I do is readable.
Yeah, so that button is really useful, for example, if you're putting in the title of someone's book and you want to italicize it to make sure that it looks correct, you'll use that button. The next button along that looks like a chain link is one of the most powerful buttons on Wikipedia. It's the one that causes that thing where you go onto Wikipedia to look up something very important that you need to know, and you end up 10 minutes later on a list of breakfast foods or a list of people who disappeared in mysterious circumstances, and then you think, how was that here? So basically, the link button is for wiki links. It's for links to other Wikipedia pages. These are really useful and valuable because they enable people to go further on their knowledge journey. And actually, women are less networked on Wikipedia than men. So one of the ways that you can improve Wikipedia without actually ever typing a word would be to find a place where a woman is mentioned but not linked to, and turn that into an actual link so that you can find out more. Find a place where a topic is mentioned but not linked to, and just transform that into a link so that people can find their way there. It's really useful to make sure that things are linked to. You don't need to link to every instance of a word. Just pick, the top one in that page or in that section and link that one, because, millions of blue links can be a bit distracting, but just make sure that the first instance, people can find their way to a bit of information that will be useful to them. The next button along is the Cite button. And like I said, this is something I wish had existed when I was doing my thesis. So if everyone clicks on the Cite button for me, you will see that the citation gadget pops up. And it says add a citation, and it gives you the option. The first one that comes up should say automatic. Wiki is pretty good for most things at being able to pull all of the information out of the internet and stick it into citation form automatically. So if you've got a URL from most websites, not all, if you've got a DOI number, which is a digital object identifier for a journal article, you can pop that in there. ISBN number for a book, you can pop that in there. PubMed ID, probably we won't be using those today, but it's like a DOI, but for medical articles. I don't know what QID is. Is that a Wikidata thing?
Yeah, QID is like the Wikidata entry, that's the subject.
There you go. So you can paste that in and press the generate button, and like 80% of the time, it will magically create it for you. Which is awesome, because, life's too short. So that's great. Have a go at doing it that way. If that doesn't work, not a problem. You'll see that there's a manual tab in the middle. So if you click on the manual tab, you'll see the next thing it shows you is the options for website, book, news, or journal. So pick what kind of a thing you're referencing. So if I were to click on book, I do a lot of stuff in Wellcome Library. Not all of our books exist as digital versions. Some of them don't have ISBN numbers. If I want to reference one of those books, I will go through, click on book, and then hopefully you will see there is a nice cite book fill in the blanks. So just fill in as much of the information as you can to just enable people to find out where you got your information from. And then press the insert button, and it will format it and put everything in the right places and auto-number it, put it at the bottom of the page. Lovely. Once you have done your citation, You don't want to have to do that again because, you know, like I said, life's too short, Wikipedia's a bit lazy, we want to do everything the easiest way possible. So you'll notice that at the end, there's a reuse tab. So once you've cited something once by putting it in, you can then just reuse it. And if you're editing an existing article and you find a new bit of information in a source that's already at the bottom, but the information isn't on the page yet, you can just reuse that source that already exists on the page. You don't need to put it all in again, you can just reuse it. So is everyone clear on citations? Perfect. Next button along, you've got bullet points, numbers, indentations, that kind of thing. The next one that you have is an insert drop-down. You can insert images, and what Wikipedia will do is it will automatically look for things that already exist in Wiki Commons. So Wikimedia Commons is where all the pictures, sounds, and videos live for Wikipedia. If you have some pictures that you're happy to share with the world for people to learn from, and that could be diagrams that you've drawn to illustrate a concept, it could be photos that you have taken of an experiment or a site that you're working on, or of a person who's giving a talk who you think is, you know, this person's probably going to be notable. This is somebody whose face people might like to see. You can upload your pictures to Wiki Commons, and then they will appear there in that images thing when people go to look for a topic to add it to a page. So that's quite an exciting thing to do.
Or add any diagrams that you've made. If you've made diagrams in your research, or if you have images in your thesis, or that you've made for papers but never used in papers, then they're really, really good for Wiki Commons.
And it's a really generous thing to do, because if you put them in one language, often wiki editors will translate them into other languages so that those diagrams can be used by other learners who speak other languages. So that's awesome. That's such an awesome thing. And I should add, the citation manager, you know what makes it even more amazing? There's this amazing bot that crawls around Wikipedia, looking at all the citations that are already there, and replaces dead links with references to the Internet Archive, where anything has been archived there, which is amazing. Also, another bot that crawls around looking at those references, and if something is paywalled in the link that's been put into a Wikipedia article, but there is a free open access version available, it will replace the reference with the open access version so that anyone can find the real paper. How great is that? You don't even have to do any work.
It's really great, Alice.
It's so great. Sorry. I get very excited about the whole open knowledge thing. Right. The other thing on the insert tab that you might want to take a look at is if you click insert and then the template button, you can add templates to a page. Now there's lots of incredibly fancy, swizzy templates that you can use, and there's different ways that you can do this that I would recommend. One is by looking at an existing page that is kind of similar to the one you're doing, pressing edit, clicking on the amazing templatey bit, copying it, and then just pasting it into yours and changing the relevant bits. The other way is by searching for the template here. The main template that you might want to use as a beginner, because honestly, templates are a bit faffy, and generally I would leave that for more experienced editors, but there's one template that you might want to use, and that's an info box. So info box, Wikipedia, all one word, so info box, and then space, and then many cases you're going to be doing info box space person. Might not be a person, might be an organisation, might be a university, whatever it might be. But info boxes are those summary boxes that you see on the right-hand side. And they're incredibly useful at giving people key information at a glance. So you might want to add an info box template to your article or to an existing article. Like I said, you can do that from scratch by typing in info box person or info box, whatever it is. And then pressing add template, or you can just copy one off of the page that already exists and change all the things to be relevant about your person. Just make sure you don't accidentally leave someone's death date in, for example, for someone who's living. That can be quite alarming to somebody to have their death announced on the internet for a while ago when they're actually still living. So there's also a symbols button, the sort of omega sign, and you can add symbols into your Wikipedia article. And you'll see there's a page options, it's 3 lines. Can everyone see that? So on your 3 lines, you'll see, if you click on that, there's a thing that says categories. Categories are Wikipedia's index. If you scroll to the bottom of any Wikipedia page, it will be in a bunch of categories. So for example, there is a category, women archaeologists. Right now, that has about 500 pages in. So there are about 500 women archaeologists according to Wikipedia, according to the index. According to the index, if you were to narrow that down to British women archaeologists, 15. Which is interesting. I would hazard a guess there are slightly more than 15 British women archaeologists. And I think the only other country that has a subset is India. So also Indian women archaeologists. 5 of those in the world ever, apparently, according to Wikipedia. So I just want you to think about categories and that index and what might be useful to people to find there. And what might be missing. So, you know, you have a think about categories. If you want any help adding categories to a page, let me know. But the easiest way to think of categories is to look at a page that already exists and all of the categories on that page that's similar to the one that you're creating. So that might be a page about an archaeological dig, it might be a page about a woman, it might be a page about anything. Have a look at what categories that's got and pinch all the relevant ones. Just use what's already there as a model. So categories, kind of like the Wikipedia index, you just type them in and press apply changes and they'll get added to your page. Does this all make sense so far? Awesome. So I'm going to give you just 5 minutes to write a couple of sentences about yourself. Like I said, just say when you started editing Wikipedia, and if you want to share any of your interests, feel free to do that. And then press all of the buttons, play with all of the things. And if there's anything you have questions about, now's a really good time to ask.
And I'm going to go ahead and say that for those who need a bit of coffee or tea, the kettle is boiling as we speak. The coffee, tea, milk, orange juice, sparkling water, you can drink the water out of the tap. That is all for everyone here to use. And start putting out biscuits.
All the best editing is done, fueled by biscuits.
It's not really an editathon until there are biscuits. So there's more. We are getting sandwiches and things, so we'll not starve to death.
And when you finished writing your couple of sentences and pressing all the buttons and trying out all the things and adding a picture and adding a blue wiki link and generally like having a go at everything, there's a publish page button. As soon as you start to write anything, it will go blue. Click on the publish page button, and if I can give you only one piece of advice for today, it is when you're editing Wikipedia, press the publish page button off, because laptop batteries die, the internet cuts out, web pages randomly close, frustrating things happen when you're working with computers. So press the publish page button because that's your save button, and until you've pressed it, the thing that you've just spent some time doing is a little bit vulnerable to disappearing. So press that publish page button.
How do you know when you check out this is for the new Wikipedia editors?
Yeah, good question. So in terms of who Wikipedia editors are, because people can edit Wikipedia voluntarily, anonymously, that's based on surveys and anyone who's willing to answer. So it's self-reported, and actually that is quite an old survey. I think it's about 10 years old. It's really hard to know for certain. And my strong suspicion is that over the past 10 years, there have been a lot of initiatives to get a lot more women editing. And at the events I run, actually, they tend to skew more towards having more women. So I don't know that that's statistic is still at 12%. It's really hard to find out without, you know.
But I think even though women start editing, it's quite a lot of evidence that people don't stick around editing.
Yeah, it's the sort of who's regularly contributing and who are the gatekeepers, and that does tend to still be, you know, straight white men in the West.
So editors, I mean, like, it's very useful, and then it edits stuff and then
Yeah,
exchange.
that's it.
No, that's what I mean. So it's like another-
Yeah. There's different levels of editor that is useful to know. So there are, anyone can be an editor and sign up. To be an admin, that's like a serious level of responsibility, and you kind of sign up and go through this real trial by fire to get your credentials as an admin and get the superpowers associated with that to do all kinds of
It's really funny reading people's proposals to be admin, but like they have to answer really rigorous questions about what makes them qualified.
It's like becoming a political candidate. You're expected to, like, you know, have your edit history scrutinized and have people read
and justify why you've made particular pages.
Yeah.
And say what your role will be as an administrator, what you'll try to do.
And complete with a vote as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a vote.
So, no, please ask away.
Ethics of
Yes.
adding living people.
Really good question. So there is a thing. If you search in the Wikipedia search box for WP colon, anytime you search for anything with a WP colon in front of it, that means it's going to be a Wikipedia policy or like a behind the scenes bit of information about Wikipedia. So WP colon, and then if you type BLP, which stands for Biography of Living Person, it will take you to a whole page of guidelines about how to write about living people. You can summarize those guidelines as do unto others, basically. Think about what you might like on the internet about yourself and be a bit respectful about what information you. So some people say, oh, it's really hard to find a birth date for this woman. And I think, no kidding, you know how like ageism combined with sexism can be problematic? Like, that's, you know, let's not hunt that out. Let's not put that on their page. That's totally okay to not include. So just think about, if it was you, what information would you want online? You probably would want information about your career. You would want people to be able to find out what projects you've worked on, what books you'd authored, what an influence you had, what awards you'd won, those kinds of pieces of information. By the same token, if you don't want it to be a complete sort of just hagiography of like, this person is the best ever, because Wikipedia will very much work against that and say that's not very neutral, that's not very encyclopedic. So think about what you want to be there, but at the same time, don't massively warp the truth to just be really, really positive. Just try and be encyclopedic, try and be reasonable about how you're representing a person. But it's a really good question, the ethics of what you add. One of the things about Wikipedia is that Wikipedians expect everything you say on there to be cited. So that kind of makes things a little bit easier because stuff has to have been written about elsewhere. So it has to be something really that is already in the public domain for you to add it to a page because you need a citation for it. So that sort of really does help with editing what information you're going to put. Okay, so has everyone pressed the publish page button? I did a couple of sentences. You can always come back and edit this at any point. This is just a start to get you pressing those buttons. So we're going to move on. But I just wanted you to be able to see how that works. So at any time, you can click on your username at
I
the
think it's
top.
just right anything you want.
You all right? Is it working all right?
Yes, I'm not quite sure how you use the talk bit, and I've got a message from somebody I don't quite know how to use.
Brilliant question. Okay, the talk tab. So you will see.
Don't worry, I've got a date with the SEM.
Thanks. Feel free to pitch back later.
So you'll see at the top of Wikipedia, there's also a talk tab. That's how editors will leave you messages. So you might have a welcome message because people are saying, hey, welcome to Wikipedia. It's nice to see you here. You're new. It might be that someone says, I saw what you were doing on that page. Do you want some help? It might be that someone will message you and say, I see you trying to create a page about this. I don't think it's actually important enough to be on Wikipedia. Let's talk about this. So you can get different messages. It's really important to be able to respond. If you've had a message on your talk page, so if you click on talk and it's red, it won't exist yet. Nobody's left you any messages, there's nothing there. If you click on talk and someone has left you a message, you will see the message, shockingly enough. That's really helpful. The thing to know about talk pages is that you can only, at the moment, use the source editor. So it's all going to look a bit typewritery. But anyone who leaves you a message there should sign it with their name, and it should have a timestamp of when they sent it to you. So you should be able to see who said what to you and when. And if you want to, you should be able to click on their name to go to their talk page and leave them a message back. Or you can do a thing, and I can show you how, where you do squiggly bracket, reply, pipe. See, this is what I said about all the funny punctuation you can use before. And then type their name, and then do close squiggly bracket, and then type your message. Anytime you're writing on a talk page, you should sign your message. The way that you sign your message is you type 4 tildes. Tildes? How do you say that?
Tilde.
The wiggly thing.
The wiggly thing. The wiggly dash. But again, Wikipedians super lazy, so they've created a button, so you only have to click once, and it puts 4 in for you. That's how you reply. And leave your name. If you need any help doing that, just let me know, and I can show you how to do it.
You can just copy what they
You
type
can
to you and then just edit it.
This thing?
I don't think I've ever done that reply thing. I took the dot and then just edited.
So should we?
So we have all now done a bit of playing around with the toolbar, created a user page, and basically now you are ready to be unleashed on Wikipedia to make some changes, which is kind of exciting. I'm going to do a little bit more hand-holding, just for a bit more, although if you're feeling confident, if you're feeling like you just want to go for it, you can go to the dashboard, you can find yourself a page, you can start editing. Another thing up the top that you need to be aware of is there's a button that says Sandbox. Your sandbox, anyone know what a sandbox is?
Yeah. I'm not getting on very well with it. But
Okay.
A play area.
Yeah, so a sandbox is a play area. If you think of sandcastles, you sort of build them up, knock them down, build them up, knock them down, add a wing on the side, dig a moat, change some bits. So your sandbox is a place where you can draft things and you can just practice, and it's not indexed like Google, so it's basically your practice area. If you want to create a brand new page that doesn't exist yet, I strongly recommend you start in your sandbox, start drafting your information, get it looking nice and tidy, and then when you finish drafting, if it's today, give me a wave, or give one of the other experienced editors in the room a wave. If it's not today, I'm going to give you my email address. My favourite emails to get on my work email are, I've created this page, can you take a look? So please do send me those emails. Say, I've started this page, I want you to review it, I want you to take a look. You can, Wikipedia does have a peer review system. Has anyone ever submitted anything to real life peer review? So you might be aware of the timescales involved in that. Wikipedia, similar thing. If you submit something to peer review, a new article that you've created, you can be waiting a good few months for someone to review it. So I'd recommend you ask me to look at it, because I will prioritise you because you've come to one of my training sessions. So drop me an email or like this today, goes away. So your sandbox, great place for playing around, changing things, having a draft. Taking an existing page and changing it so that, if you want to use an existing page as a template, you can take the headings and copy them into your sandbox. You can copy templates in and then change them. So if you wanted to take one of those info boxes and then modify it all, you could do that in your sandbox. But now we're going to get onto real life editing. And I am going to edit something live. Actually, I want to get one of you to edit something live. Who's feeling confident? Shall I do this one and then you can do the next one? Okay, I'll do this one. So there is someone who I found, Beatrix Midont-Rains. She's an archaeologist, apparently. I don't know anything about archaeology really. She has one sentence about her. One sentence. It says that she is a French Egyptologist who is director of the Institut Français d'Archéologie Orientale from 2010 to 2015 is the only thing we know about her on Wikipedia so far. And there's one reference, because, you've got to prove what you've said, so somebody's proved that one sentence, they've proved that statement. But we don't know anything else about her. So if I want to edit an existing Wikipedia page, you'll see there's a handy-dandy edit button at the top. So you can find your way to any page, you can find your way to this page, you can find your way to another page, and you can click that edit button. Before you click the edit button, really worth clicking on the Talk tab to see if anyone has left any important messages. So in this case, somebody has left a message saying, this is a living person. Be a bit thoughtful about what you write about them. Other than that, no messages. The other thing that you'll see on the talk page is that sometimes people assess articles for you and tell you how good they are. What's helpful about that is it's got information on the grading system, so you can see what needs improving to make this page better. In the case of this page, which is one sentence long, everything, everything could make this page better. Anything I do, pretty much apart from deleting the one sentence citation that exists, will be better. So, but good to check the talk page. So any page you want to edit on, check the talk page. I did my thesis on an organisation that's a bit controversial and has lots of really weird conspiracy theories about it, so their talk page is amazing. Lots of interesting discussion about why vanity publishing doesn't count as a respectable source, etc. The other thing that I'd encourage you to think about doing, if it's a really big Wikipedia page in particular, is you can click on the View History tab from any Wikipedia page, and that's how you see everything that anyone has changed ever. There's even a button that you can click to find who added a specific thing. If you paste that phrase in to this thing called Wiki Blame, you can find out who to blame for that addition, which is really cool. So when people say, oh, there's no accountability on Wikipedia, that's not entirely true. But anyway, check out the background, do your background reading. I kind of compare it to walking into a new pub or cafe for the first time. Before you plunge into conversation with somebody there, you want to just take a second, get the lay of the land, see who the people in there already are and what they're kind of talking about. So, I've already done my background reading. I'm going to edit this page and add something to it. I found out a bunch of different things about this person, Beatrix Midon-Reyes. One of the things that I found out is that her work particularly seems to be about the prehistory of Egypt. She was the author of a book called The Prehistory of Egypt, from the first Egyptians to the first pharaohs. So I can add that in. So I'm going to add in that that was her book. And also I found an award that she won. She won the Diane Poitier-Boas Award in 2004. So let's add the award in first. So in 2004, I'm going to say Midon-Reyes. When people are writing about women, they tend to refer to them by their first name. They don't do that when they're writing about men. Something to think about. In addition to not putting their, relationships at the very top of their page, think about how you're referring to them and what's a respectful way of referring to them. And yeah, surnames. A nice way to do it, I would say. So in 2004, Midon-Reyes won the, and then I'm going to paste this in so I don't have to attempt to spell it, Diane Poitier-Boas Award. And she won it for her work on the origins of Egypt. So I'm going to then paste in my citation, bear with me. So I'm going to click the cite button. I'm going to paste in my citation and hope that it works. So you get a little loading thing, and then you see it pops up with a preview of what your citation will look like. So that's pretty good. I'm going to press insert. If it's pretty good but it's still missing some things, you can press insert and then you can press the edit button to add in any stuff that's been missed. So one of the things that often gets missed is if you're pasting in a link to a newspaper article, it doesn't always pull through the date of publication correctly. So that might be something you press insert and then you edit and add the date of publication.
Or Nature, any Nature journal doesn't put the date.
Does it not put it? So that's something that you just might want to be mindful of, that it's pretty good, but you might want to add some things manually yourself. So I'm going to press publish changes. When you press publish changes, this pops up. This is the edit summary box. The edit summary box is really useful, and when I have people who come to Wikifirms who've had a go at editing at home by themselves before and not been successful, one of the most common reasons why stuff that they've done might be taken down or removed will be often because they haven't filled in the edit summary box. The edit summary box tells other Wikipedians what you're doing or what you're trying to do. And it's really useful to fill this in because if for any reason it doesn't work, they'll be able to help you and they'll see what you were trying for. They'll see that you had good intentions. The other thing is, if you're replacing something that's incorrect, really good to fill in the edit summary box and just explain that, because Wikipedians get attached to their knowledge, and if they feel like someone's taking it away or vandalizing it, they kind of want to know, well, what's happened to the knowledge that was already there? So if you're removing or correcting anything, really good to explain in your edit summary box, this was incorrect, updating it to reflect the latest historical scholarship or the latest scholarship in the field. And then that just shows people that you know you've taken away something that was there before and replaced it with something else or just taken it away. But you had a good reason to do that. You're not just, randomly stealing the knowledge from the people. You're doing it for a good reason to make the page better. So adding your edit summary is really useful. You don't have to write in full sentences, you don't have to write loads of detail, just a sort of quick fragment saying what you've done and why. You only really need to say why if it's changing, replacing something. If you're just adding to a page, you can say added awards. So I've said added information about award. You've got two tick boxes under here. One says, this is a minor edit. It's really interesting. One of the gender dynamics of wiki editing is that I get asked a lot more by women, shall I tick this as a minor edit box? I've only added one sentence. If you click and find out what a minor edit involves, it's basically proofreading. Spelling corrections, typos, grammar, those kinds of things. If you are adding to the sum of all human knowledge on Wikipedia, even if it's just a sentence or a citation, that's not a minor thing. That's an awesome thing. Be really proud. Don't tick the box. Not that there's anything wrong with proofreading. That's a great contribution too, but pretty much only tick the box if you're proofreading. If you want more details, you can click and find out more what constitutes a minor edit.
What does it do? What does it change? I thought it meant
it
that
just
no one would
shows.
check it.
No, it shows on the history that this is a minor edit. If you try and fool Wikipedia by making massive changes and saying this is a minor edit, they'll see from the edit count the number of bytes of information added. That's probably not minor. It looks like they've added a whole wacky great paragraph there. Maybe I will check it. But, that's one of those things. The other box that you've got is a watch this page box. So a lot of people ask me, well, when I put this up there, how do I know, what's happening to my page afterwards, or how do I know what people are doing to it, or essentially what is the quality control system of Wikipedia? Watch this page is kind of the quality control system of Wikipedia. Because if you're really invested in an article, you can choose to watch it. You can do that by clicking the watch this page, or also when you're logged into Wikipedia, you'll see that there's a star at the top of any article that you're reading, and you can click on the star to essentially favorite it. And you'll notice that at the top, you've got a watch list. And if you click on your watch list, it will show you all updates to any page on your watch list, anything anyone has changed since the last time you checked on your watch list. So you can go through and see if that was helpful. And if it was helpful, go to the history page and click the little thank button, because that has been proven through research of wiki editing practices to keep people doing similar edits to that again in the future. So if someone does something helpful, thank them for it on the history page, because they will be more likely to contribute useful edits to topics that you care about, again, if they're getting some kudos for it. It just sends them a little message saying, someone's thanked you for what you did. And that just gives people a little fuzzy go. It's just a nice thing to do.
You can watch multiple pages too, so you can watch pages that you've not written. If you see the little star on a page, you can press that and then monitor them.
Yeah. So it's just a useful way of keeping up to date, and also seeing changes in areas that you care about. So I'm not going to click watch this page because I hope that Beatrix's page is improved, but I'm not personally invested in it. And it's not a minor edit because I've added some information in the citation. when you first start editing, you're going to get annoying capture codes. I promise you will not get those for very long. It's just your first few edits as a brand new editor, and then they go away forever and stop being a bane of your life. So please don't be too frustrated by them. I've got tries conga today. They're always the weirdest things. Right, so I did that. I had a little box come up saying your edit was published, and that's it. Awesome. Bye. Now Beatrix has 2 whole sentences about her. Woo! So, collectively, we made the internet 1 sentence better today. It is that simple. To just press the edit button, add your piece of information, and press, add a citation and press publish. That is really simple. Today, you definitely know that you can go home having made some improvements, having made the internet better, having shared some knowledge, having made the internet a little bit more, more diverse. That would be great. So I'm going to stop talking and let you crack on with the editing and enjoy having a go yourself. Like I said, if you want to have a look at the list of suggested articles on the page, you can do that. There's loads of books here. Grab a book, think about what you can add from there. One thing that I want to leave you with, I say leave you with as in stop talking, because I'm going to stay in the room and help you with any questions. But I had a look on the Women in Archaeology page. It's pretty short, but it's fine. But I clicked on the history of archaeology, which is the first thing linked to from the Women in Archaeology page. The history of archaeology. Can I see raise of hands anyone who does archaeology, interested in archaeology? I'm assuming that most of us are. Okay, so apparently, according to Wikipedia, of all the names mentioned in the history of archaeology, there are 51 men. Guess how many women? 4, 2, 1, 0. 0. There are no women in the history of archaeology.
No way.
None. I might have miscounted and overlooked one. Feel free to prove me wrong. I would love for you to prove me wrong, but 51 men mentioned in the history of archaeology, and not a single woman has ever done anything in the history of archaeology, according to Wikipedia.
Other than Dion.
So, if anyone has strong feelings about that, feel free to have a think about what you would like to see there and what isn't there right now.
Does the history of archaeology page link to the Women in Archaeology page?
Let's have a look. Nope, it doesn't. It doesn't even link to the Women in Archaeology page. You can't even find the women by clicking on a button in the history of archaeology
Someone
page.
in this room.
They are invisible.
But only one person, because if you both try and do it at the same time, you'll
Not everyone in the room.
Don't everyone dive into that page, but if anyone would like to take a look at that, what I'd recommend you do is draft something in your sandbox, and then when you're ready to pop it in, just cut and paste it into the press edit and then paste it in. Because then you've kind of already done that, and then you don't have to worry about everyone trying to edit stuff at the exact same time. So, like I said, I'm gonna stop talking and leave you with those 51 men and 0 women in your mind. Don't please blur you are. Sorry.
The photograph of Sophia Freeman wearing.
So there's a photograph of someone who's referred to as the wife of the archaeologist wearing some things he found. She might even have a name. That's on there. So yeah, like I said, happy editing. Feel really excited about the fact we're going to make the internet better today, and just give us a wave if we can help you with any.
And I'd just like to thank Alice and Richard. Thank you so much for coming and yeah, sorry about the absence of a screen. Though I think this is probably something that everyone will want to ask somewhat individual health questions with. So get yourself some tea and coffee from the other room. There's little plastic cups and stuff. There are biscuits. And these are the goodies. These are some of the books. And actually, we also have here today Alice Stevenson, who for half an hour more, very briefly, but she actually is an excellent resource just for history of archaeology and women in archaeology. She was formerly of the Petrie Museum and knows all sorts of things about wonderful women like Hilda Petrie and Margaret Murray. So if you ever had a question about what some of those artifacts are for the Petrie, that's also grab Alice while she's here. But and thank you so much, Jess, for coming and speaking to everyone.
Yeah, so I think we'll just go ahead and get started. Right, sorry.
In my field, I was trying to create